Ryan was 40 minutes into our pitch for a $12 million investment when he decided to rewrite our history. He stood at the head of the glass-walled conference room and told the board from Meridian Capital that I was just the assistant who kept the trains running on time. He gave me a dismissive smile, assuming I would just nod and play my part. He didn't realize that the lead investor, Angela Reyes, had already done her due diligence when she leaned forward and asked, if she's just the assistant, why does she own 51% of the company? The room went dead silent. Ryan's visionary smile evaporated. He thought he was the face of the company. He forgot I was the one who signed his paychecks. My name is Tessa Okoye. I am 36 years old. I am a data scientist with a PhD from MIT and 12 years of experience in machine learning applications for enterprise analytics. I am also the co-founder and majority shareholder of DataClear Analytics, a company I started 4 years ago with Ryan Hoffman, who has a business degree from a respectable state school and 6 years of sales experience at a mid-tier consulting firm. Ryan and I had met at a tech conference. He had been presenting on go-to-market strategies for analytics companies. I had been presenting on a new algorithmic approach to predictive modeling that reduced computational overhead by 40% while improving accuracy. After the conference, he had approached me, said he was looking for a technical co-founder for a company he wanted to start, said he had the business knowledge and industry connections, said he needed someone who could build the actual product. We had talked for 3 months. I had developed the initial model, built the first version of the software, tested it with early beta clients I had recruited from my professional network, proven the core concept worked. Ryan had written the business plan, created the pitch deck, talked to potential investors about market size and competitive landscape. When we formalized the company, we had negotiated the equity split. I had wanted 60%. I had built the product. I had the technical expertise. I had brought the initial clients. Ryan had argued for 50-50, said we were equal partners, said his contribution was equally valuable. We had compromised at 51-49. I took 51. He took 49. It was documented in the operating agreement, filed with the state, unambiguous. For the first 2 years, it had worked reasonably well. I built. He sold. We divided responsibilities according to our strengths. Then the company started growing. Revenue hit 5 million, then 8 million, then 12 million last year. We hired employees, built a real team, started conversations with serious investors about scaling, and somewhere in that growth, Ryan had started describing the company differently, started referring to himself as the founder in singular rather than one of the co-founders, started introducing me as his operations person rather than his co-founder and majority shareholder. I had noticed it, had mentioned it twice. He had said I was being oversensitive, that titles did not matter as much as results, that investors wanted to see clear leadership and he was simply presenting himself as the leader because that was what investors responded to. I had let it pass, focused on building the product, focused on the work that actually mattered. But today, in front of 8 representatives from a venture firm considering a $12 million investment, he had described me as someone who handles day-to-day operational details while he focuses on strategy and growth. He had described the co-founder and majority shareholder of the company as an assistant. Angela was still looking at her notes. I want to come back to this, she said, because the diligence materials show Tessa as co-founder and 51% owner. They also show that she holds the lead technical role and has filed 3 patents in her name related to the core technology. That does not sound like someone who just handles operations. Ryan shifted slightly. Tessa is extremely talented technically. Absolutely. And she has been instrumental in building the product. What I am saying is that the business leadership, the vision for where we go, the strategy for how we scale, that comes primarily from me. But she has final say on company decisions, Angela said, because she owns 51%. Legally, yes. In practice, we operate as partners. We make decisions together. Except you just described her as someone who handles operational details while you focus on strategy. Those are not partner-level descriptions. That is a description of a subordinate relationship. Ryan smiled. The smile was thinner now. I think we might be getting caught up in semantics. The point is that we have complementary skills and we work well together. Angela closed her notebook, looked at the other investors from Meridian, 3 of them. They exchanged glances, the kind of glances that communicate a conversation that is happening without words. Then Angela looked at me. Tessa, I would like to hear your perspective on the company's strategic direction and growth plans. Since you are the majority shareholder and co-founder, I assume you have thoughts on where the company should be going. The room went very quiet. Ryan was looking at me now. His expression was careful, the expression of someone who has just realized they may have made an error and is trying to determine how large the error is. I looked at Angela, then at the other Meridian investors, then at Ryan. Then I spoke. I appreciate the question, I said. My voice was calm, clear. I had been preparing for this moment since the third time Ryan had described me as his operations person at a networking event 6 months ago. I think there has been some confusion about roles and responsibilities that I would like to clarify. Ryan started to speak. Tessa, I continued without acknowledging him. I am the co-founder and majority shareholder of DataClear Analytics. I hold 51% ownership. I also hold the technical leadership role. I develop the core algorithms that are the foundation of our product. I filed the patents that protect our intellectual property. I recruited our first 5 clients from my professional network. I have been the primary technical architect for every major product decision we have made and for years. I paused. Let that information land. Ryan is correct that he handles business development and investor relations. He is good at both. He has important skills that complement mine. But to describe me as someone who handles day-to-day operational details while he provides strategic vision is inaccurate. I provide the technical strategy. I determine product direction. And as majority shareholder, I have final decision-making authority on all major company decisions, including this investment. Angela nodded slowly. Thank you for clarifying that. You are welcome, I said. I want to be clear that I value Ryan's contributions, but I also want to be clear about what I contribute and what my role actually is. I am not an assistant. I am not operations support. I am the technical founder, the majority owner, and a primary driver of this company's success. The room was completely silent. Then one of the other Meridian investors, a man named David Chen, said, "That is helpful context. Thank you." Ryan's face was very still. I apologize if my language created confusion. Obviously, Tessa's role is critical and her ownership position is clear. Obviously, Angela said. Her tone was neutral, but the word landed with weight. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes. Angela asked me questions directly about the technology roadmap, about the competitive landscape, about our plans for scaling the team, about how we would use the $12 million they were considering investing. I answered all of them, clearly, completely, with the detailed knowledge of someone who had built every aspect of this company's technical foundation. Ryan contributed to the conversation, but the dynamic had shifted. He was no longer the singular leader holding court. He was one of 2 founders, and not the one with majority control. The meeting ended at 11:15. We shook hands. Angela said they would be in touch after discussing internally. They left. Marcus, our CFO, stood and gathered his materials, looked at me, looked at Ryan, said, "I have calls scheduled this afternoon. I will be in my office if you need me." He left. The kind of tactical exit that people make when they recognize that a conversation is about to happen that they do not need to be present for. Ryan and I were alone in the conference room. He looked at me. That was unnecessary. What was unnecessary? Undermining me in front of the investors. We are supposed to be partners. You described me as your assistant, in front of 8 people considering whether to give us $12 million. I did not say assistant. I said you handle operations, while you focus on strategy and growth, while you bring the vision. That is how you describe a subordinate, not a partner. You are being oversensitive. I looked at him for a long moment. Ryan, I own 51% of this company. I built the technology. I recruited the initial clients. I filed the patents. I am not being oversensitive when I correct the record after you describe me as someone who makes the trains run on time. I was trying to present a clear leadership structure. Investors want to see that. They also want accurate information about who controls the company they are investing in. Angela knew from the diligence materials that I am the majority shareholder. When you described me differently, that created a credibility problem. Not just for me, for both of us. Ryan was quiet. What do you want me to do? I want you to stop describing me as operational support. I want you to introduce me as co-founder and majority shareholder. I want you to acknowledge in investor meetings and client meetings and networking events that I am a primary decision maker, not someone who handles details while you think big thoughts. And if I do not? I had been waiting for that question. I had been preparing for it since the moment Angela asked me to clarify my role. Then I will exercise my majority vote to restructure the company in a way that reflects the actual contribution each of us makes. I am not interested in a fight, but I am also not interested in being invisible in the company I built while you position yourself as the sole leader. He stared at me. You would do that. I would do that. That would kill the company. Investors do not want to invest in companies with founder conflict. Then do not create founder conflict by misrepresenting who I am. We looked at each other across the conference table. The city skyline was visible through the glass walls. Below us, the street was full of people going about their business, unaware that 3 floors above them 2 people were negotiating the terms of a partnership that had just revealed itself to be less equal than one of them had been pretending. I am going to call it a day, Ryan said finally. I need to think about this. You do that, I said. He left. I sat in the conference room for another 20 minutes. Let myself feel what I had been holding during the meeting. The anger, the frustration, the particular exhaustion of having to correct the record about your own competence and authority in a room full of people who are deciding whether to give you money. Then I opened my laptop and started drafting an email. The email went to Angela Reyes at Meridian Capital. The subject line was follow-up on ownership structure and decision-making authority. I wrote it carefully. Acknowledged that there had been some confusion during the meeting about roles and responsibilities. Clarified that as majority shareholder I had final authority on major decisions including investment terms. Stated that while Ryan and I had complementary skills, any investment agreement would need to reflect the actual ownership and governance structure, which centered decision-making authority with me as majority holder. I did not criticize Ryan. Did not air grievances. Just stated facts. Clear, documented, unambiguous. I sent it at 2 in the afternoon. Angela responded within an hour. Her email said, "Thank you for the clarification. This is helpful information as we continue our evaluation. We will be in touch by end of week with our decision." By end of week turned out to be Thursday. Angela called me directly. Not Ryan. Me. She said, "We have decided to move forward with the investment, but we want to structure it with some governance provisions that reflect the ownership structure more clearly." What kind of provisions? I asked. We want to formalize your role as CEO. We want Ryan to have a C-level title, Chief Business Officer or Chief Revenue Officer, that reflects his focus on sales and business development. We want board seats that include you, Ryan, 2 of our representatives, and 1 independent director that you and Ryan agree on. And we want decision-making authority clearly documented so that major decisions require your approval as majority shareholder. That sounds reasonable, I said. We also want to have a conversation about succession planning and founder equity vesting, but we can address that in the term sheet negotiation. I look forward to seeing the term sheet. You will have it by Monday. And Tessa, she paused. The way you handled that meeting, the clarity, the composure, that is exactly the kind of leadership we look for in founders we back. Your technical skills are impressive, but the way you corrected the record without creating drama, that told us what we needed to know about how you lead under pressure. I thanked her. We ended the call. I sat at my desk for a moment. Then I walked to Ryan's office. He was at his computer. Looked up when I knocked. Meridian called, I said. They are moving forward with the investment. His expression changed. They are? Yes. They are sending the term sheet Monday. They want to structure it with some governance provisions, including formalizing my role as CEO and your role as Chief Business Officer, and board composition that reflects the ownership structure. CEO, he said. Yes, you negotiated that. I clarified the ownership structure. They made the decision about titles based on that information. He looked at me for a long moment. You are not going to let this go. There is nothing to let go of. I am the majority shareholder. That was always true. I am just not going to be quiet about it anymore when you describe me as something I am not. This is going to change things between us. Things already changed. I just made sure everyone else understood what the actual situation was. He nodded slowly. Congratulations on the CEO title. Thank you. I left his office, went back to my desk, opened my laptop and started reviewing the product roadmap for next quarter. The term sheet arrived Monday. Everything Angela had described. CEO title for me, CBO for Ryan, board structure, governance provisions, $12 million at a valuation that was fair and reasonable. We signed it 3 weeks later. The investment closed in 45 days. Ryan stayed for another year, then left to start a different company, one where he was the sole founder and majority owner, where he could describe his role however he wanted without having to negotiate with someone who held 51%. I did not try to stop him, paid out his equity at the valuation we agreed on, wished him well, meant it. He had good skills. He would probably do fine with his new company, but he would do it without me building the product while he described himself as the visionary and me as the person who made the trains run on time. I hired a new chief business officer, a woman named Sarah Patel who had 15 years of experience in enterprise sales and who introduced me to clients as the CEO and founder and majority owner, who understood that her job was to support the company I had built, not to rewrite the story of who had built it. The company continued to grow. We raised a Series C 18 months after the Series B, then a Series D. Revenue hit 40 million, then 60 million. We built a team of 80 people, opened offices in 3 cities. Forbes wrote an article. They described me as a technical founder who had successfully scaled a data analytics company into a major player in the enterprise space. They mentioned my PhD from MIT. They mentioned the patents. They mentioned the revenue growth. They also mentioned Ryan as co-founder who had departed to start a new venture, but he was a footnote in the story. The main story was about the company I had built and continued to lead. I keep a copy of the article, not because I need validation, because it is accurate, because it names what is actually true rather than what someone decided was more convenient to present to investors. I am 39 now. 3 years past the meeting where Ryan called me an assistant in front of 8 people who were considering whether to give us $12 million. DataClear Analytics is valued at $210 million. I still own 51%. That means my stake is worth approximately $107 million. I built that, not by making trains run on time, not by handling operational details while someone else provided vision, by building the technology, by leading the company, by making the decisions that had to be made and holding the authority that was mine, by ownership and by work. Ryan is not part of that story anymore. He made his choice about how he wanted to describe me. I made my choice about whether to accept that description. The choice I made was recorded in an email to Angela Reyes that clarified what was actually true. The choice resulted in a term sheet that formalized that truth. The choice led to a company that is worth $200 million and climbing. Some choices cost relationships. Some choices build empires. Sometimes they are the same choice. Here is what I want to know. If your business partner told investors you were just the operations person when you owned 51% of the company, would you have corrected the record in that meeting like I did? Or would you have waited until afterward to address it privately? Some people say you should never contradict your partner in front of investors because it creates uncertainty. Others say that letting false information stand is worse than the temporary awkwardness of correction. Do you think I was right to speak up immediately? Or should I have preserved the unified front and dealt with it later? And the question that still interests me, when someone consistently describes you as less than you are, is that about how they see you or about how they need you to appear so they look larger? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. If you believe people should face the consequences of their actions, hit subscribe. I have got more stories of justice that will blow your mind.